So what I'm doing right now is I'm working on a project. This is my spreadsheet. I'm just collecting information right now, and then some of these lines might get removed later once I have all the data, I'll go back and determine it. But these are like all the theoretical routings that you can do off of various starters, different scaling from your starters that convert, and then so the way it's generally organized is going down the list, you add more and more drive gauge, and then you add one extra bar of drive gauge, and then it's all the default things that you can do, and then the level 1, then level 2, then level 3 supers, and then add more drive gauge, etc., continuing on as it goes. And then over here, this is the damage number for the combo, the number, so this number equates to the squares within, this is the corner carry. I'm measuring the corner carry based on the distance that the player character moves, not that the opponent getting hit moves, because that's more indicative of Oki that you can get, etc. If you knock them full screen, it's not really, but you move nowhere, it's not really corner carry per se. So this is how far the character moves based on the grid squares in the grid stage, so it is 8 squares long, and I'm using the lines to determine that. And then this is the amount of super gauge gain. Now on my monitor, the super gauge is exactly 7 centimeters, so this is recorded to centimeters out of 7. And the Oki, which I put up here, what Oki it is: no Oki, bad DR Oki, normal DR Oki, meterless normal throw Oki, and then specialty Oki. I'll probably go back and adjust this recording system later on, because it'll be more relevant and I'll need to differentiate the Oki more precisely than that. But so that's how I'm recording all of the combos, all the routings, etc., to determine the optimizations. These points here are things such as SS means side switch. I didn't have to put them because I usually put a negative distance traveled for anything that side switches to indicate that it is a side switch. ST means only works in a standing opponent. CR is crouching opponent, etc. And then 5.9 is combos that you can only do when maxed out on drive gauge that have micro walks in them. So 5.9. So let me demonstrate. So like a 5.9 combo would be like, normally if you have if you say like do a crouch strong or something, and you're going into level 2, then the optimal would probably be I'm blanking. Oh, right. That, so 4086 off of that. But if I do a micro walk, right there, you see how I build a tiny little bit of drive gauge there? If I do that instead, this should do more. So, 4,320. But that combo is only possible when you have exactly full 6 bars. I might be mistaken on what I recorded as the optimal. I have the crouch strong, not crouching medium kick. Where's the crouch strong? It was really short. So for full, it was drive rush. Wait, I forgot to put, this one requires standing. So this one is crouch strong. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Okay, yeah, so that's correct. Collecting this, what I've done so far, has been 15 hours of work. Has been 15 hours in the lab. So anyways, that's neither here nor there. I'm also doing it as a demonstration right now. I'm just as an example measuring the proation on relative value. And what I want to do, so my current 2 projects that this is contributing to is, one, I've realized, more so than I already knew, and I already knew this, that Cammy is incredibly unoptimized right now. And so I am intending to find those optimizations, and I found even more optimizations than I could have even expected I would. But so one thing is to make a video for the optimal Cammy routes and Cammy combos and Cammy optimization in general for damage, corner carry, super gain, etc. And then I also, in doing this, I want to come up with like a science, like a theoretical science of value, so that I can compare these values here. So right now I'm doing basically measuring damage relative to extra drive gauge spent on a single confirm. So if you do punish, counter, crouch strong into EX knuckle, and you do a conversion off that still gives you Oki, and I might as well just demonstrate one that doesn't give you Oki, because some of the combos that I'm comparing it to do not give you Oki. So that does 2660. I only recorded as 2540, so I'll probably have to go back and do this, etc., and redo the numbers. But like for this example, so if you do a drive rush combo instead, you can do, and the drive rush combo that people normally do in this instance would do this much damage. Actually, the one that people often do, Cammy players would often do in this instance, would be this. That's what you see the most often. That does 2,449 compared to this, which does more. So they're spending less, they're spending more to get less. So because the EX Knuckle 1 is an EX move, it lets you regenerate drive gauge during the combo, which means that by the end of it, it only really costs 1.5 drive gauge instead of 2 drive gauge. You regenerate the other ones before they get up off the combo. So I measured that as this much damage relative to this much drive gauge, and then comparing that to the damage you would get without spending any drive gauge, just doing into Spiral Arrow, it adds 547 damage per drive gauge spent. Now, in general, I've more or less theorized that 150 drive gauge per drive gauge spent is generally worth doing until you get to like dangerously low on drive gauge, so below 4 bars. But until you're at like 2 bars left, I think 150 damage per extra drive gauge spent is usually worth it, and it depends on characters and like how much damage they normally get. Cammy, I think, is totally worth it for 150. So 547 is an enormous amount of damage per drive gauge spent. So if you add a third bar compared to that, it gets much lower compared to the previous action, which was off of EX Knuckle. So this only adds 75 damage extra per drive gauge spent to do this routing. If you do this, which is on standing opponents only, it adds 218 damage relative to this one. See, the thing is that like these have to be measured relative to every other combo. So right now, this as a measure of how much extra damage added to drive gauge is relative to this combo. This is what I measured everything against in this instance to determine what was actually worth adding more drive gauge to it or not. And so that's currently what I'm doing. This is like the default that this is like the default combo that I think people should do when they have like full meter. And in general, I think this added on top of this, totally worth it. If I compare this to not spending any meter, or let me just demonstrate and compare it to the combo that people normally do. So let's say they normally do that. So that's 2329. So 2329. at 3.45 at, how much super did it gain? 2.2 centimeters. And type 4 Oki. So this, if we just do the math and compare this, so that is how much they spend for 3 bars of drive gauge. Now, this is the damage that you can get, and this does not require standing. You can do this at any time. Actually, let me redo it because that's based off of punish counter, and it shouldn't change the damage that much, but... So 3039. So let's say 3039 minus 2329 is equal to that. So that's an extra 710 damage for 1 drive gauge. One more drive gauge, 710. So that even blasts this value out of the water. That is an enormous amount of extra damage for 1 drive gauge spent. The only cost of which is you're doing a 4-bar conversion for which you do not get meterless Oki. So that begs the question how valuable you think your Oki is. Now in mid-screen, with Cammy, I think mid-screen Oki, maybe not that super important all the time. If you can't get meaty crouch fierce in a distance where you can convert it into crouch strong, which you usually can't off of a lot of knockdowns. And also, that's not even counting the extra super gauge you generate. So this is an extra 1.6 centimeters of super gauge for... what am I talking about? 1 extra bar of drive gauge. So, this is all kind of irrelevant, and I'm just looking into this for my own reasons. But I would like to, at least just to have some sort of fake-ass system in place, I would like to put in a lot of philosophical thinking to this and create a system where I can effectively measure overall value. So if I can come up with a value of value proration of damage versus drive gauge, and some of these might have to be on a scale because 1 bar of drive gauge has a different level of value depending on if you're at 6 bars or if you're at 2 bars, etc. So I would have to come up with these mathematical formulae for how to measure these relative to other factors and stuff to calculate overall value. Versus Oki would be the hardest thing probably to calculate, versus super gauge, versus corner carry, which is kind of related to Oki, especially on the side switch ones, whether or not it's justifiable. But I would like to do that, to calculate, to be able to weigh the value of an extra centimeters worth of super gauge gain on a combo, and the collective value of the difference in damage, super gauge, all those things, to come up with some bullshit but at least helpful, logically based system that I could use to instantly calculate, just run numbers and then measure something based on some theory, and then once I have a system in place of how to measure those things that I feel is more or less appropriate and makes sense, then I'll go into it, try it out, and then adjust it as need be. So that's... my current project is just doing the Cammy optimizations, but after that I would really like to put my head down and come up with that shit. Optimal 5 bar off of a fucking low 4 drive rushing a standing opponent to... God damn it, I've been fucking doing this for too long. My hands don't even work anymore. Fuck you, 3195 for 5 bars and 2 super... The super gauge, you don't understand. It's gotta have the super. Fuck you. Oh my god, I fucking did it. That's really difficult to do off of that specific. You have to micro walk forwards and then do back roundhouse and then do up forwards and then do quarter circle back for level 2. So micro walk, and then you have to... Alright. I'm getting it now for some reason. Bam! Cool guy. Oh, what? Look at these bullshit people. Look at these bullshit Cammy players. Fuck you. Fuck you. How dare you? Drive rush. Wow, he standing confirmed that. I'd never see... They usually never do that. That's not the... It's better to do the... It's better to do the... He did the right confirm, but it's better to do heavy spiral arrow into... Well, here, let me just... I keep going to that, but I forgot that there's actually an even better route. That's the optimal. More corner carry, more damage, more plus frames. I want to do more combos so I can be smug about it. Oh, what? Oh, you left like fucking 200 damage out, stupid asshole. I can't believe you didn't spend the last 9 hours documenting every single optimal route. I didn't see what he started with. Alright. It doesn't matter here. He can kill doing literally any combo, but the optimal would be like some back roundhouse conversion or a crouch grace conversion would be fine. That's not optimal. You absolute son of a bitch. You rat bastard. You do those fucking optimals. That wasn't optimal. What the fuck was that shit? I don't want to be cursed with this knowledge of what the fucking Cammy optimals actually are. This is fucking torture now. I wish I had never done this. I missed that. I wasn't paying attention. Not quite in the corner. Just barely not in the corner. But significantly more damage. Let me sleep.